if you are, just say hey. And I always like to see who's in here. And, this is the reason that we do these live is for y'all to like interact and be part of the show as well. And there's so many times that I'm listening to a podcast, I'm like, oh man, I wish the host would have asked this question. And this is your chance to be that and be like, hey, John, ask Pi this thing. But yeah, Pi, we can just go ahead and get into it. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, I doing, not that I really have to do much research, cause like you've been in the industry for years and years. Are you over 2 decades now? I know that you started like SLR Lounge like almost 20 years ago.
It was about 15. So
Oh, okay.
we started up in, let's see, in 2008. So we're on 16, going on 16 years now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's when we started
That
the
is,
studio. A couple years
yeah.
later, we started SR Lounge.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. That is, how has that been? Like, I've been in the industry since like 2013, but I really wasn't. Uh, I was more of just like people were hiring me as a photographer. I had no idea about the industry, nothing, no trends. I didn't follow anything. I didn't really follow any photographers. I had like a folder on my work computer of just like inspo photos,
Yeah.
which, funny enough, as I was going through an old hard drive that I had like just taken all that stuff off years and years ago, uh, I found that like maybe a year or two ago, and I have some of your photos in that like inspo, just
Oh,
like
interesting.
pulling from Pinterest and stuff back in like 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Um, but like that was I I really wasn't like in the industry, wasn't paying attention to stuff. Like I'm sure you were, with SLR Lounge and all that. How has photography, like wedding industry and everything, changed over the years?
It changed over the years. Man, I can't speak like from, I can only speak from the perspective of someone who has around a little more than 15 years of experience. Because there are people that have been like in the industry for 30, 40 years
Yeah.
that can speak through every single transition. When we came in, it was a very interesting time. I feel like when we joined the industry, it was kind of the heyday of like digital was just getting like really good. You started getting very unique cameras and lenses and options that like weren't really that. I guess the speed of and the pace of development was just kind of unmatched before. And so you had kind of like an explosion of just different genres of photography, like coming out like stylistically. So within like the wedding space, there was the typical type of wedding photos that you would expect, which is the kind that our parents would have. Just someone's taking pictures, they have flash, direct flash. And then you had kind of this explosion of different techniques being used in like other genres of photography that were maybe at like higher budget areas where you had budget for lighting and all that, but you saw it kind of come towards the wedding side because the equipment became that much more available. The ability to process raw files digitally and to get good raw files out of the camera. So it was kind of in this transition because the few years prior to that, digital had just come out, but even the professional cameras were giving you a couple megapixels worth of files. So it wasn't like it wasn't good. So yeah, it was a really cool like creative period where the first 4 or 5 years it was just like one new technique after another. There was more gear being introduced that would just level up your abilities that much more. Um, it was a really fun time. Then we kind of shifted a little bit more into like a growth period for our business. Like I'd probably say from like 2011 to 2017 ish, and then it kind of became like let's level off and just stabilize and prepare for families and all of the my partners and I we all had kids around that time. So it's
Yeah.
kind of the journey in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. How did that change? Because I know, like for me, I also started like before I had kids. I started this business about 2 years before my first was born, and then like things changed a lot in my business to where I wasn't uh, like I wasn't pushing for all the travel and all that. Whenever I was like, oh, I have like a 6 week old at home, I don't
Yeah.
want to be gone for 4 days out of the week. And like, did that? How did that look like for business for y'all? Of just like kind of transitioning from like either pre kids or like that transition that you were talking about with just kind of reshaping the business.
Yeah, I mean, I had kids, earlier than my partner. So, my oldest is actually 14. I believe my partner's their oldest is, like, 7 or 8. So,
Okay.
I would say I've always been kind of, like, down to work, but early on, all of us were kind of game to travel. We were game to shoot, double headers, triple headers if we needed to. We were out and working quite a bit. And especially when we were building like our associate brand, like we were constantly training and constantly like, trying to bring on the best people. Once my partners, I went through kind of a divorce about 7, 8 years ago.
Okay.
And right around that time, my partners were also having their kids. I kind of came to learn that a lot of my tendency to kind of be a workaholic came from, not necessarily having a great home environment. Like I did not like being at home. I did not want to be at home. So it made it very easy to work a lot and to travel and to do all those things. And it kind of, um, there's those times where we basically, and I don't know if I'm going too deep into this, but I figured it's wisdom in
No,
the tangents. So
we
let's
can go
get into
deep.
tangents. But there are times where, like, you kind of lie to yourself, like, "I'm doing this because I want to support the family, I'm doing this because I wanna build something for my kids," and the reality is really, at that time, I was working like that because I just didn't wanna be at home. Um, and so about 8 years ago, I divorced, and then I later found a very healthy relationship, and then it started to shift my dynamic in terms of work the exact same way that it shifted Justin and Chris as my business partners.
Yeah.
Um, when they started having kids about 7, 8 years ago, like they very much wanted to work less. They wanted to not do weekends as much. They wanted to definitely not travel. Let's let the young guns on the team take all the destination work. Um, and even working weekends became not that desirable very quickly because by the time the kids are 4 or 5 years old, they start getting activities, and you want to be able to be there for those activities.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand that shift, or let's say I didn't see that shift for myself for the first 6 years of being a dad until I was into a healthy marriage and relationship, and I was like, I actually want to be home too. I want to have my weekends as well. So now we're in a very different place in our business. It's kind of like a maintenance mode place where we're actually, uh, I would I would kind of describe my time in the photography space as like different phases. Like you go through these different phases in your career. And
Hmm.
2008 was like to probably like 2011, 2012 was this creative explosion. And 2012 to 2017, 2018 was kind of like this let's grow everything as big as we can. And then 28 and beyond was let's actually design something that's sustainable and scale back even if we want to or need to make it sustainable, and make it a pace that we can, we want to keep up with basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that last stage is really hard for people to get to because like the first two are more fun of just like the creative juices and it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going out here, I'm learning this new technique, I'm doing these things, I'm traveling all the time. And and then the growing is, for a business owner, it's just fun to grow
Yeah.
your business and just watch it scale and like learn more about like marketing and sales and just like the things that maybe the creative side of your brain doesn't really have a good grasp on intuitively, and just like that kind of stuff feels more fun, more sexy. And then the mindset shift of like, oh, if I want this to like sustain, I have to
Yeah.
put like systems into place to make this sustainable to where I'm not just working all the time and I'm not spending so much time on the back end of like keeping the business afloat so that I can continue on, just like bringing in income and work and all of that. I feel like that took me a long time to get there, and probably because I was trying to do it on my own for a long time. I'm a firstborn. I was, my dad was in the military. I kind of like, we grew up. I was homeschooled, and a lot of it was just like, you do what you know to do, and like you can figure it out, and you don't really have to. There weren't a lot of people to ask for help,
Yeah.
so as an adult, that kind of was the way that I ran my business. Was like, I don't know, I'll figure it out, I'll do this on my own. And it probably wasn't until like maybe 5 years ago that I actually got a mentor, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
other people know so much more than I could just like figure out on my own. And I feel like that is a mindset shift that takes a lot of us a little bit of time to get there, of just like, oh, okay, I need to do more than just, posting on Instagram all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. We came into photography a little bit from kind of, I would say what is traditionally like a backwards approach. Justin, Chris, and I, we were all accountants. And so
Okay.
we were all CPAs. We worked for Ernst and Young, and we left in 2008 to kind of like say, let's go and do something on our own. Um, and it wasn't probably till 2009 that we really got moving, but we knew the business and the systems part. And so we were kind of coming at it like where we never even have taken a picture before. I didn't own a camera. I like beyond my phone. I really had no experience with photography. I'd never picked up. Maybe back in high school, I picked up a film camera once. But I didn't understand how it worked. Nothing.
Right.
So we had no experience creatively. So when we launched the business, it was more like we could see an opportunity there where we understood the business potential,
Hmm.
but we were basically working for the first few years trying to develop the creative side. Like, let's catch up on that side. So very quickly we implemented systems, and that's what enabled us to kind of like we scaled to basically $1 million within the first 3 years. Um, and it was for those first 3 years, it was always the, creative side that was kind of catching up, and as soon as the creative side would catch up to our price point, like, we would kind of, like, try to be a value at each of these prices, and as soon as, like, the creatively we would step above, we'd try to bring the price back up and just kind of work our way where it was rapidly over a course of 3 years, but it felt very slow at the time where we're just kind of, like, incrementally raising prices. And then by 2011, we had a seven-figure studio. And so by 2011 to kind of 2018, it was like, let's see how far we can take this. And that's where I give a lot of this credit to my partner because I probably would have stopped there, like where we were at that time, which was
Yeah.
in 2011. But he was like, I think we like you develop the education, you develop these different system components for the product, and I'm going to develop all the operations side. So I'm going to systemize everything operationally and use your education to basically plug in. And he did. And basically we worked together, but he was the head of this. Justin kind of ran this whole side. That's where we scaled it up to like we were doing 3 to 4 million across 7 of those years. That's the place where we're working nonstop. Like we're at that place where it's like, okay, a single branched, like we don't have multiple locations. We have one single location, a single branch studio. Getting to that point, you're working a lot. Even though we're serving like boutique clients, you're still going nonstop.
Right.
That was the place where we're like, when they started having kids, you start realizing like that kind of pace at, you know, even for 6, 7 years that we did it, and we maintained that, all the way through the pandemic, basically. So it was almost a decade that we were running it as that size. That's where you get to the place where you're like, we're gonna have to scale back. So for us, it was not so much putting in the systems because that's what enabled us to get there. It was more so like we have to be okay pulling back and just kind of like letting this be something that we can manage on our own and something that we can do without having. At one point we had a team of 40 staff, so like 40
Wow.
people worked in our
Yeah.
studio Monday through Friday. So that's where that was kind of like the take that we had on it, and this kind of like stepping back. But for most people, you're absolutely right. For most, I would say traditionally you go into photography having first learned the creative side,
Hmm.
then you learn how much you don't know business wise, because like
Right.
it's really 80% of the business. You know the 20%, the creative side, and
Yep.
then you learn the 80%. Then you start systemizing and realizing, like, holy cow, I can make this very sustainable. And I would say, like, between like let's say 200 to $500,000 in revenue, you have a very sustainable business where it's like minimal. I need minimal staff, maybe just myself, a virtual assistant, um, you know, shooters that I can bring in, contractors now and then to help me with work, but that's it. Like that's all you need in that kind of space of revenue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I do feel like, or a lot of the photographers that I talk to start opposite how you did, of just like you said, they have that 20% creative, the I've always had a camera, I
Yeah,
was taking photos when I was 12 and that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
that's the cliche.
Yeah, it's the cliche, and then everyone like is just like, oh, I could do this for a business, and then it's the, oh, how do I run a business? I know how to take the photos and deliver them and edit and everything, but like bringing in more than just word of mouth and my friends to take photos of, and that's really interesting, and like I think that like you can see it in y'all's business how y'all were able to scale so quickly, and just like because of those systems that you had in place. And that's one thing that, like, if I could go back and talk to 23-year-old me and just be like, hey John, figure out some systems, like
Yeah,
put a foundation under you, so you're not just like shifting all over the place, like, I don't know, I can do this, I can do that, and just like scrambling to get anything, and having like those long periods, especially like here in Texas. It's insanely hot in the summer and no one wants to get married, so like you
yeah,
will have a very slow time, and if you don't have things in place, to like fill up that time, it just turns into like no income.
yeah,
And that was something that I was like, I wish I could go back and just like tell myself, put these in place, because it is, as a business owner, it's so important to have that foundation and grow, uh, or to be able to grow, than just being creative. Like, your creativity definitely sets you apart in the industry and causes people to like see your photos and go, "Oh wow, I want to hire a pie." But like uh, the foundation, those systems and workflows, and just like building a team that allows you to scale to, 2, 3, 4 million, that you can like keep bringing that in, and be sustainable.
yeah. There's one of the biggest things that I encourage photographers to do is to find good quality education, to find good mentors, and to
Hmm.
invest in it. It's honestly one of the most difficult things that I've sold. I love sales, and I've sold a lot of different things. One of the most difficult is trying to convince people to invest in their education. And for the life of me, I don't personally understand it necessarily. I don't understand the hesitation because for me, I've always invested in education throughout the entire time that I'm learning, I'm growing. Even right now, there is a high level sales seminar that I've signed up for that starts tonight. And I'm like, I can't wait to go and do this,
Yeah.
to take these skill set and go even further. So, regardless of where I am in my life and my career, I love investing in good education and getting mentors because I firmly believe in this idea that you don't know what you don't know. And what that means is not usually what people think it means. What people think it means is like, oh, well, whatever I don't know, I can just go onto YouTube and I can just search it up.
Right.
But that's not true. YouTube is a great place. The internet and with ChatGPT, all these things are fantastic resources to be able to search for topics that you already have an understanding of. Like, I want to dive a little bit deeper into one specific thing. Okay, well, great. You can find a lot of different things online. You still have to filter and figure out which ones of these are reputable and good. But the problem with that I'm describing is different. You don't know what you don't know is that you have no idea what you should even be searching for. You have no idea what's the next step. You have no idea, how should you go from this place to this place. So instead, we go down this loop of like trial and error. We go through this process of, well, I'm just going to figure it out. And people spend years in that place, years where they're just kind of banging their head against the wall, going like, why isn't this thing working? And how come this? And I'm like, because you're literally doing the same thing you've been doing for years and you're expecting different results, and that's not quite how it works.
Yeah.
And so the easiest way to kind of make these skill gap hurdles is actually just investing in good education, good mentoring. And I say good because there's a lot of
There's a
garbage out
lot.
there.
Yeah.
It's challenging, but it's like I wish that were something that I could impart on people because that's really been one of the greatest skills, one of the greatest value sets I feel like that I've leveraged is just if I find good education, I'll buy it. Like, and
Yeah.
and that's made our growth exponential, as opposed to kind of trying to figure things out and you stumble your way through the process.
Oh, that was 100% me. Like I was saying earlier, like I'd always tried to do things on my own. So I had YouTube University. I was like, yeah, I can. It's like you were saying, it's like the difference between that known unknown of like I know that I don't know this,
Yeah,
so I'm gonna like I'll search on YouTube and I'll didn't have ChatGPT back then, but Google whatever. I'd find some books and try and learn what I thought I needed to know to grow. But it's that unknown of like I didn't even know I needed to know this.
yeah,
That is those are the aha moments. Those are like those game changers of like, oh, this changes everything.
yeah.
Like
It's
if I
dramatically
knew this
different.
before, this yeah, and that's where those mentors come in. And yeah, there's a lot of trash out there. There's a lot to sift through. But there's some really amazing people that it's they're gonna like walk with you and actually like look and invest in you and your business instead of just like, hey, this is my blanket everything, like this will work for everyone, like those kinds of things.
Yeah,
They don't work for everyone. They worked for that person, and it might work for you if you're similar, but yeah, there's it's hard to know those things that you don't know. Uh,
yeah. It's
like it's hard to figure it out on your own without just stumbling into it by accident.
It's literally impossible, and the amount of money that we leave on the table is
Yeah,
staggering. The amount
yeah,
of time and effort. I firmly believe that photographers, they don't have you heard the statistic of something like 80%, 90% of photographers will churn out of the industry within like 5
like
years. Have you heard that?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. I firmly believe most of us, I think, would think that like they're churning out because they weren't good enough to make it, right? I know for a fact that it's not that because you probably see them a lot of times when they churn out, you're like, man, you're doing great work. Like your photos are absolutely awesome. It has nothing to do with the quality of their work. And what I believe is that they churn out because of this it's kind of a combination of things that leads to burnout, where it's not the kind of burnout you think of like, "Oh my god, I'm so
just
tired of being
working all the
successful at this
time, and
thing."
yeah.
It's the process of, like, trial and error of trying to figure things out and it not working. So,
Mhm,
they get 3 to 5 years in their business, they've kind of cobbled together something that sort of works, they got a little bit of revenue, maybe they're paying a little bit of the bills, but they're working hard and they're barely able to survive.
mhm,
And you do that for a few years and you're like, "Man, there are a lot of easier ways of making a living than just to continue doing this." And so after 5 years, they burn out because the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze. Like they're just like, I'm tired of doing this same thing. And so when I go, you need to invest in good education or mentorship. It's what I'm really saying is like that's kind of the only way to get past this sustainability barrier. You're
yeah,
getting this place where you're burning out because what you're doing to make your business work is just not sustainable. And it's very difficult to overcome that on your own because you don't necessarily know what it is that's going wrong, what it is that I need to change or adjust. There's a part of this mentality that is very commendable, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. I know why this mentality exists because usually people that go and try to start a business, they're kind of self-starters. They want to do things, they wanna figure things out, they wanna take things on, and they like those challenges, and that's great. Like, you want that as a business owner, but you don't want that to override everything. Like, why would I kind of spend all my time reinventing the wheel when I could just pick
Hmm.
up a wheel, put 4 of them onto my car, and then start working on the next component, the next piece of the business? It just doesn't make any sense. But I get the reason why we have it. The reason why we have it is we're kind of self-starters. We wanna drive for this goal and wanna move forward in it. But at a certain point, it's very counterproductive.
Yeah. I think at least for me, it was a lot of ego too, of like I want to do this on my own.
Yeah.
I want to have that like that pride of yeah, I'm self-taught. So like whenever people are just like, "Oh wow, you like how'd you learn how to do?" Oh, I taught myself. I just looked at the camera and I was like, "Oh, I can figure this out." And like you can get to a certain point in that. And you can get to a certain point in figuring out your business on your own and being a self-taught solopreneur.
Yeah.
But then
Well, I have a question
there
for you on that, John, because
yes, yes.
my background is psychology, and that's one of the most fascinating things to me.
I love psychology.
There is a very deep want and need, for a lot of people to be able to say, "I'm self-taught." But
Hmm.
whenever I hear that, I go, "What does that actually mean?" What does it mean to you, John, when you say self-taught?
Yeah. I it whenever I've asked myself this question, like when I looked back and I was like, why was that so important to me?
Yeah,
Um, I didn't really have a solid answer. I didn't have like oh, it's because of this. But I think it is like I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing and like there was I don't know, there's this sense of pride of I did this.
yeah,
I built this with my own hands. I am, I'm smart. I want people to know that I can do this. And I didn't just like buy a handbook that was just like, do this, now invest in that and learn this thing and buy this camera and do this thing. And like the I think for me it almost seemed like there was uh, more value in it if I learned myself, if I just like if it came to me, if I was
yeah,
just looking at my camera and like I don't know what is this ISO, what does
yeah.
that mean, and just which fun story, I did not know what that meant. So I was shooting at like 1600 ISO for the first 3 years of my business, full sun, everything, just
16
the
times better
same.
images.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, and that was like way back on like the early digital Nikons, which were not great. Like that was pushing it. But
Yeah.
like there
Well, it's a
was
fun the reason why I ask, it's a funny thing because, I ask
uh
because I challenge the idea of, is there even such a thing as being self-taught? Like, that's the notion that I think is silly
mm,
because can you truly be self-taught? You mentioned yourself, at some point, you gotta pick up a book or watch a video.
right. You're
As
learning
soon as
from
you do
like
that, you're not self-taught anymore.
yeah. Yeah. I think that was the shift for me of seeing that the YouTube videos I was watching, the books I was reading, the articles, and the like the even the camera manuals and all of that. Those were tools to help me grow in my knowledge and skills. And the the big shift for me was seeing other educators, other people who had done this before. They've already beaten this level. They're on it like level 7 now. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I can show you the shortcuts on how to get through level 2." And like that seeing them as a tool to help me grow was was like the big shift for me. Instead of just seeing them as like someone who's like, oh well, I know more than you, so I'm going to show you this, or I can
Sure.
show you this for a certain amount of money. But seeing that as like, oh, that is just a different way of learning. That's a different tool, and it's also like a way better tool than just a random YouTube video that I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll learn something from this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm of the opinion, uh, well, I would say belief at this point that
Mm,
there is really no such thing as self-taught. We do put a lot of like ego and a lot of pride into that notion,
yeah.
and it's like if you truly want to be self-taught, then you need to pick up a camera and not talk to anybody. Don't read any articles.
Yep.
Don't watch YouTube. Don't,
Hmm.
take a tutorial. Don't read a
Don't
magazine. Like
don't look at
that's
anyone's photos that
self-taught.
anyone has ever taken, because you might get a little inspiration from that
Yeah.
and
As soon
learn.
as you pick up
Yeah.
something, you're no longer self-taught, right? Because someone is creating that education, someone is
Hmm.
writing that article, someone is doing some of the helping and getting to a destination. So if we really want to buy into this like kind of ego-driven idea that I'm self-taught, then you can't do any of it. Or we could kind of give up such a silly idea and realize that it never really existed in the first place because we're born to parents who start teaching us regardless. So
Yeah.
never can we be truly self-taught. So if that's the case, then why not jump on the fast track on everything you do? Why not, like, regardless of what it is that you want to learn or what you want to do, why not go straight to the place where you can get the best information, wherever that place be, and then like kind of make that your learning process?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, I want the listeners to hear that. Just like, because I know that there's so many people out there that are in that mindset of, I can do this on my own. I'm
Yeah,
going to grow this. I am, and just like that notion of, oh wait, uh, nothing that I've done has been self-taught. Like I
yeah,
have learned from so many people. Because like as you were saying that, like I was thinking like who could be self-taught? Like maybe Tarzan, because he was just like away from people. But then like he was taught by like the
animals.
gorillas and
Yeah,
animals, and like even being away from society and people, you're still learning from other things. And
yeah,
yeah, there's no way to be completely self-taught. So just give up on that notion, that false notion of being self-taught, and take the fast track.
yeah,
Uh, like learn from people who have been there before, who have gone through the trial and error, who have spent the years and years of just like, okay, this is the best path. I've tried all the other ones. This is the one that gets you there quicker. And just learn from them. And also, like you said this earlier, of just like you always look for education to buy. There's so many people that just like they will buy education, but then it just sits there.
yeah, yes.
Like you've got to do it. You've got to go through it, and you have to implement it.
That's another equally pointless pursuit to
Yeah.
be a kind of a book collector or an education collector as opposed to actually learning it. There's not really a purpose to that.
No, no. But oh man, Pi, this has been so good. I love that this was like not even the topic that we were gonna start on. Like I didn't even pull up any of my questions to go through. But I love that we got here, and I think this is a super valuable episode for everyone, and myself included, to just like every now and then that ego pops back up again of just like, oh no, you can do this on your own. Like I don't have to though. I don't
Yeah,
have to, like we can. I am a huge advocate for community, and sometimes I have to remind myself like, oh, you also need community. Like you need people to walk with you, and not just like foster a community of people helping each other, but also find those to walk through life with you, and to help you, give you a hand whenever you stub your toe, or you have a bad month or whatever in business. It's like, I know we can get back up, we can do this. uh,
yeah,
so
yeah. Whenever somebody really leans into the idea of being self-taught,
mhm.
not only do I challenge the idea right off the bat of even being self-taught, but it makes me question their, I want to say their level of awareness, their level of awareness that they have,
Hmm.
and potentially the amount of knowledge or the intelligence that they've gained if they truly believe that they are self-taught.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are the other questions that you had?
Let me see. Let me actually pull up that tab.
Is there any
Let's
community questions too? Like, since we're live?
no questions coming in right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, I had some questions about like cultivating a great community, and like with SLR Lounge and everything that y'all are doing there. Like, uh, how did that come about, and how has that kind of shaped the way that you view business or the industry through that community that y'all have fostered?
Yeah. Well, I guess in terms of like building the community, I don't know that I I do sometimes set the intention of like let's build a community, but it's usually that kind of like desire to grow something comes from like just my like what do I want to learn, or what do I enjoy learning and I want to share. And so I find that like growing a community from that standpoint is pretty easy and doable, because it's really just taking my interest in the things that I've learned about this and finding ways to share it in ways that are meaningful, and kind of giving it a title that fits it, makes it searchable. But that's really it. So it's not like, I don't feel like there's really any magic there.
Hmm.
The magic that, like, I don't understand large scale community building. Like, I was watching a podcast about the Nelk Boys. Like, I'm just learning about them through like my kids and stuff, and
Yeah.
they have this massive following, and it's like, I don't really understand how they like. I guess I kind of get sort of the concept, but it wasn't like they had a topic. It wasn't like they just are essentially doing interesting things and being people of interest, and people are following it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that doesn't make as much sense to me as like community building with purpose. So I would say like I like building around a concept. And so the concept on SR Lounge, it's kind of shifted through the years. It was largely creative development focused for the period that I was creatively focused. And then over the past few years, I've very much been shifting it towards a business focus, because that's what I enjoy. Business psychology. These are the topics that I think I'll kind of love to the grave, essentially.
Yeah.
So I've kind of shifted the direction of it, where now it's, we still have our creative development library, but our focus is business development now. And so it's interesting, because you'll see now the community mindset is kind of shifting. Usually, there's always a little bit of resistance when something shifts. This isn't what we kind of came here for,
Right.
and there's that. And then those people that really don't want any side of that, they kind of exit. And then the people that want business kind of come in, and it starts to kind of take on a new shape and a new life. And that's sort of where we're at now. Is we have a mastermind group that's actually free to join. The mastermind has almost 10,000 people in it now, and everybody is very much business minded.
Yeah. That's very cool. That's like I love that kind of like we're just putting it out there. This is what we're interested in. Come alongside,
Yeah,
and just like not the. I know. I feel like some of those big communities, they are very much like, come on in here, come, like, bring all your friends, and like
it's very inauthentic.
it is
And
very inauthentic. And I feel like there's a lot of people that join and just like, I don't know why I'm here. I
yeah,
Someone told me, they tagged me in a post, and I'm here. And it's just like you have like maybe you have big numbers because there are a lot of people in your community, but then the engagement is super low because a lot of the people are just uh, not it doesn't fit for them.
yeah,
And I see that with like Instagram followings too, of people who just like try to attract or like pay for bots to like bring in people and all that, and then you like, okay, I have 15,000 followers now, but I get 20 likes on a
yeah,
photo because that's my core. Those are the people that are here for what I'm doing.
yeah.
uh, a algorithm them aside and all of that. But no, I love that. Just like put yourself out there and share what's interesting for you at this time and what you're growing on, and then community will follow
Yeah.
because like-minded people will join in with you.
Yeah, if you can create a valuable kind of topic driven community, it will grow. And if it's not that, then I usually question like the again going back to the idea of like sustainability. Like it's not sustainable to run a group where you're just trying to get everybody and anybody into the group, and even if you do get them into it, they're not going to stay active and they're not going to keep participating. It's a constant grind, and it's like why are we even doing this?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of community building to me. But on that higher level of like, how do you just be like that person of interest and fame? And I don't understand that level of it. So so I only get it at this level.
Yeah, I don't get that either. And there's like a few um, like YouTubers that I'm just like, that's very interesting that you have millions of people watching you, because it's just like maybe they're like saying things in an interesting way, or they're like super expressive and people are joining in for that. But I'm like, there's really no substance here. I don't
There can be, yeah.
see it's just it's very interesting. And I'm all about substance. Like those are the people that I follow. Like if even if you're not like actively teaching me something, I'm still learning something or being reminded of something. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, hmm, yeah, you said that. I know this, but am I doing it?
Yeah.
No, I need to actually start implementing this thing. Uh, so,
Yeah.
okay.
When I say like I don't understand that level of community building, or when you say like I don't understand, what we're really saying is like those aren't the communities that we would participate in. So
100%.
what I'm kind of saying is that as far as the people that I follow and the people that like the podcast that I listen to, every one of them are kind of topic driven podcast and platforms.
Hmm.
They all have a sort of purpose. So when it comes to what do I want to create for myself, I create from the lens of what I understand, which is a purpose driven platform. So it makes a lot of sense to not like really understand why something is popular or why, because they're not necessarily speaking to us. They're not speaking to
Yeah.
you and I, and so that makes complete sense, and it's very interesting. Like, well, who are they speaking to? What is their, because that's essentially the question that like every advertiser is asking before they go and show their stuff on a platform or before they choose to work
Definitely.
with somebody, is who is watching this podcast or this YouTube channel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's a really great reminder for us too, as we are marketing our work and our businesses out there. Like, you're not going to attract everyone. There are people that are going to, they'll see your ads, they'll see your work online, they'll come across your website, and they're just going to be like, I don't get it. I don't understand this. This is not for me. And that is great. And
Yeah,
like, you don't want to be for everyone, because then you have those people that are just like, I don't know. It just kind of like feels mid. I'm just like, I'm not excited about this. I don't really know why I'm here. And then they move on, or they feel like they have a bad experience with you because they're not the right people to be there.
yeah,
And then, yeah,
yeah.
the
The
whole attract and
misconception,
repel. Yeah.
that idea is that most everyone says like you can't speak to everyone, right? You can't
Hmm.
be appealing to everyone. That's the common like way we hear that line. The reality is you don't want to speak to everyone. You don't want to design something for everyone. That is the reality, because like you just said, if you are trying to speak to everyone, not only is the messaging likely going to flop, but the people that you do get are very likely to not be the type of clients that you want to work with. They're the
Yeah.
difficult clients. They're the clients that have no idea what they want. They're the clients that just want to make your life miserable because they're paying you a few $100s. That's who you're essentially opening up the floodgates to. So, yes, you can't speak to everyone, but the reality is that you shouldn't want to speak to everyone. You should want to dial into who understands what you're trying to create, who understands the values that you want to use while serving that thing, and only speak to those individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can be a scary place, especially if you're like a newer entrepreneur and you're like, I just need the leads. I need that little ding in my inbox of like, oh, someone filled out my contact form. All right.
Yeah,
And like, you need that dopamine almost of just like, okay, cool. This is
or the
working.
followers or the
Or
likes,
the
right? It's the
followers.
same
Yeah.
thing.
And it can be scary to be like, okay, I'm speaking to this person. Like
Yeah,
I am trying to attract these people now. And then those leads are going to start falling off a little bit for a while, because you're not attracting everyone anymore. You're not getting everyone like, hey, I'm interested. I don't know why I'm interested, but I'm here because you're just like speaking to everyone. You're going to get the more qualified leads coming in, the more qualified followers and people joining your email list. And like, you're going to have better quality community and people and clients all around.
yeah. If I think people always find it surprising. Well, they always find this idea surprising that if I were to actually like reveal to you the number of socially wealthy photographers and creators out there who have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers that are financially poor, it would blow your mind. Like
Yeah.
it's gotten to the point where now when I see somebody what I would define as like socially wealthy, you have a lot of followers. Um, I just kind of automatically assume that you're not financially wealthy. And if you are, then you're an outlier because
Yeah.
you've actually understood the business of this and you actually understand, how to deliver something of value. But you can't believe what you're seeing online because these facades that we see in a person's profile and their follower count, it has nothing to do with their actual financial, spiritual, family success. None of the metrics of success that we would think actually matter are tied to that follower count.
Yeah.
So it's a very strange thing. Again, these kind of ego driven pursuits of like that we get lost in that have absolutely no meaning, absolutely no purpose, and they have no tie to someone's actual success on any level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it is that ego driven. It's I want to get to this level because like I want to get to I want to become a six-figure photographer because then people will be like, you you know what you're doing because you're making six figures. And then you can just like share that. But like if you're only bringing in, you got all the expenses and you're not bringing like there's no six figure profit with that.
Yeah,
Like there's all these vanity metrics of like, hey, look at this, or I can do these things, um, or I hit 10K on Instagram and now I have well I remember it used to be like now I can do the swipe up in my stories,
yeah,
and now everyone has links and stuff. But like there's so many vanity metrics that we go to that really serve no purpose other than someone being like, oh, cool, you
yeah,
must know what you're doing. But yeah, there's so many people that they have the vanity out there that it looks good on the outside, but on the inside, at home, when they're on their computer in the business, it's just chaos.
totally.
And yeah, it's definitely one of those like you can't judge the book by its cover. You've got to back to finding a mentor and like sifting through a lot of the trash out there. There's a lot of the vanity metrics with mentors and coaches that are just like, look at these things that I've done. But if you look at the like, where are your reviews and your testimonials? Like that's where you really find out about someone.
Yeah, people will try to monetize every little piece of success that they have,
Hmm.
especially in the education space. If someone gains 10,000 followers from a video, they're now a social media expert, right? And they're like, let me teach you how you can, I grew my Instagram count from one follower to 10,000 in 3 months, and you can do it too. Or similarly, like someone goes and they land their first $10,000 job, or they hit their first $10,000 month, and they're like, let me teach you how to be how to win $10,000 contracts,
Yeah.
or even the silly idea of six figures, right? Like I'm going to teach you how to be a six-figure photographer. Our mentorship program is called 10K 2K. It basically stands for like I'm gonna get you to $10,000 a month, which is basically $100,000, $120,000 a year. That's the baseline promise. Is like we need to get you to six figures because that's like the baseline. It's like you can finally pay your bills.
Hmm.
120,000 in revenue doesn't mean 120,000 take home. It means that you're probably taking home 50, 60, 70, $80,000 and you have enough to survive.
Yeah.
But people will take these like little tiny wins and try to leverage it into something that is much larger than it is. And I'm like, man, if you could just instead focus on that thing, like you had a little win there, if you
Yeah.
can just keep focusing on that, you can eventually turn this into a really big win. And then you can start teaching from that perspective. Like I have no problem with like I welcome more coaches, more educators. There's so much for me to learn, and I love it when people have like Alex or Mosey is one of my favorite people to kind of watch and absorb from because
Oh yeah.
he's taken what we've done and he's amplified it another 50 times. And I'm like, that's the next place that I would like to go. But I think the need there to kind of instantly gratify ourselves by turning this one win into like its own business is kind of killing a lot of different industries. Like
Hmm.
I want to learn if I'm going to learn from somebody on Instagram, I want to learn from the person who has millions of followers who's turned it into a successful business and who does it sustainably over the course of 5 or 10 years. That's who I want to learn from. And it should be the same way anytime we look for a coach, when we look for a mentor, when we look for an educator that we want to follow, we should be looking for people that have demonstrated sustained examples of success, not
Yes.
one-offs.
Yes.
One-offs are absolutely useless. And we shouldn't get lost in like, oh, this person had one video that did well, and so I got to go and learn from them, or they're the experts on this. That's not kind of the way that works.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that a lot of like, hey, this is my TikTok strategy and how I got 3 million views on my video. And then you go and it's like you pinned this one that has 3 million, but the one here has like 350. This
Yeah.
one has 1200.
Isn't
It's
it
like
insane?
it's not sustain you're not sustaining this. And yeah, sure, like there's the whole algorithm thing you got to work with, but if you're saying I have this proven system, like it has to be sustainable. It can't just be a fluke.
Yes.
And yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I feel like we could do a whole whole another episode on just that. But yeah, Pi, I know we're like coming up on an hour here, and I
All
am
right.
so grateful for your time and being here and chatting today. Before we wrap up with like where people can follow you, find you online, and all of that, there's a part of the show that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week, and it can be literally anything, book, TV show, movie, whatever. What are you loving this week?
Oh, book, TV show. Um, I'm loving that Severance is coming out with season 2.
Oh yeah, yes. I just rewatched season one in preparation for season two,
Yeah, we're doing
and
the same thing right now.
going back, I'm like, oh, like
Yeah.
I did not realize this the first time because obviously I didn't realize things. But going back, I'm like, oh, like they're like hinting toward this in certain things that they're saying. But yeah, oh man, that show is so
We're doing
great.
the same thing. I would say it's even better the second time watching it. Like I'm picking up a lot more.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, it is. It is a really, really great show. I'm trying to get my wife into it. It's not exactly her style of show.
Yeah.
I feel like it'll be a little. I don't know. I like the slowness of it,
Yeah.
and then just like all the questions of just like why is this happening? What is going on?
Yeah,
So yeah, that's great. I also love Severance and very excited for season two. Um, there's so many things like the end of season one. I was just like, I don't even know where they're going to pick up. I don't know what's happening, but I am ready for it.
totally.
Okay, I'm loving it's polar vortex time right now in Texas. We had like maybe an inch and a half of snow last night. So I'm loving. We just woke up and the kids were so excited. They heard their teacher told them like some old wives' tale of like if you wear your pajamas inside out and put a spoon under your pillow, then it's going to bring the snow. So they did that last night and it snowed and they were like, it worked. My spoon brought the snow. So yeah, just that. And just, my kids are 4, 6, and 10. And just, we don't get a lot of snow here. I think the last time was maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah,
So just that joy of something new and just them trying to pack tiny little snowballs off of just the frost that's over everything is it's fun morning. So I'm loving
yeah,
that this week.
that's rad. That's awesome.
Well, cool. Well, Pi, where can people find you? Where can they follow along, join your community, learn from you?
Yeah, so I would say if you have trouble finding any of our links, just jump on Instagram. You can follow me at Pyjirsa, so Pyejirsa. But probably the best place just to jump into if you're serious about building a photography business. So it could be portrait, any genre inside of portraits. We have puppy portraits, boudoir, we have family, all of it. So as long as it's client serving portrait models or anything in the wedding space, then the best place is just to join our free mastermind group. Just go on to Facebook. You can type in mastermind and pi, and you'll see our mastermind group right there. It's free to join. We do actually review every single applicant. So there's 3 questions when you join. Make sure you fill them out. We look at every profile just to verify people, so that way we kind of keep the quality of the community up. But yeah, that's probably the best place to jump in, and there's tons of valuable stuff there constantly being posted. So great place to
Awesome.
jump in.
Okay. Well, sweet. I will have links to all that in the show notes for everyone. And yes, definitely join. I have really enjoyed learning from you over the years and just the community and everything that you have created over that time. But
Thanks,
yeah,
John. Appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you coming on the show. I really enjoyed getting to talk with you today.
Likewise. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. And we will see you for the next podcast. Bye, y'all. All right. Sweet. Okay. We are all done. It looks